talented. She not only sings, but plays a number of musical instruments. We know that Leanne has made a difference in the student life of the Mount. After graduation, she will be working as a dietitian at the Single Parent Resource Center in Spryfield and as a research coordinator for a study to validate the Mom's Munch Box, a tool used to evaluate dietary intake of low-income mothers. Congratulations, Leanne.
Madam Chancellor, Madam President, honored guests, and graduates. On behalf of the Mount St. Vincent Alumni Association, it is an honor to present this year's Alumni Award for Teaching to Judith Scrimger. The Mount St. Vincent Alumni Award for Teaching is presented annually to recognize superior teaching performance and in appreciation of the contributions to the high standards and goals of higher learning. A committee of faculty, alumni, and students evaluate nominees through classroom observation, a philosophy statement on teaching, and personal interviews. Candidates are assessed on their concern and attention to student needs, their successful communication of subject matter, and the reputation they have earned for superior teaching from students and colleagues alike. Judith is an associate professor with the Department of Public Relations, as you probably guessed when all this PR students stood up. She holds her undergraduate degree from the University of Guelph and her Master's of Arts in Journalism from the University of Western Ontario. She has worked and taught at the Mount for over 20 years. For more than a decade, she chaired the Department of Public Relations and oversaw the doubling of enrollment in the program, as well as the growth of cooperative education. She has been a guest speaker at a number of national and regional conferences, including the Canadian Public Relations Society, the International Association of Business Communicators, and the Canadian Association of Communicators in Education. Judith is also very active on campus, sitting on several committees of the university's Board of Governors. She states in her philosophy of teaching that she wants her students to see that she cares passionately about their individual growth as students and their increasing ability to appreciate the world of ideas and their own as well as others' creativity. This philosophy seems to be working based on the reaction of our students. And I'd just like to share a couple of the students' comments. Oh no, they're all great. She provides her students with material from her own primary research and can speak for hours with the best vocabulary that I have ever encountered. Her voice and actions are attention grabbers. They grab your attention like her snow boots do. Judith receives a framed certificate and an award of $500 to the university fund of her choice. She is chosen to direct her award to the Margie O'Brien Scholarship. Congratulations not only to Judith, but to the students and the Mount community. We are extremely fortunate to have an outstanding professor like yourself contribute to the educational value of the MSVU.
It is my honor today to present the 2000-2001 Award for Research Excellence to Fred Harrington. I'd ask Fred to join us. Dr. Harrington joined the Department of Psychology in 1977, where he is currently professor and chair of the department. Let me begin by saying that Dr. Harrington is an international expert on the social behavior and communication of canids, that's wolves and coyotes, both in the wild and in captivity. For over 25 years, Dr. Harrington has sustained an outstanding level of research activity, during which time he has produced a book, about 30 peer-reviewed journal articles, 25 technical publications, 17 invited conference presentations, 4 keynote addresses. He has maintained continuous research grant funding for 16 years from varied sources that speak to his expertise: the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, and a wide variety of external agencies, including national environmental ones. His applied research, focusing on the human impact on wildlife, has been characterized by a number of firsts, including the first experimental study of jet aircraft effects on caribou, and a study to employ the new technology of radio telemetry on wildlife in Canada. In fact, his work on caribou has now been cited as a research model for future studies on marine mammals. A 5-year study in northern Labrador is the only work ever done on barren ground black bears, providing his student researchers the opportunity to contribute to pioneer field work in this area. Recently, Dr. Harrington's research energies have shifted to a wider ecosystem issues. Some of his work has appeared outside of traditional academic venues as contracts with government agencies or with Aboriginal groups in Labrador, or as submissions to environmental assessment panels. Dr. Harrington has worked with both the Innu Nation and the Labrador Inuit Association on environmental concerns and has brought his expertise to a number of critical wildlife conservation issues in both Canada and the United States. In the last decade, he has been involved with efforts to return wolves to Yellowstone National Park. In 1990, he was awarded the Silver Medal for the Royal Society of Arts, the Atlantic Chapter, for his contribution to wildlife conservation. Dr. Harrington's research career, characterized by groundbreaking work, is one in which he has shared his knowledge with a wide variety of audiences: academic colleagues, conservationists, policymakers, the general public, and with children through educational media production. His supervision of students at all levels has been extensive, as has his collegial service as a reviewer of grants, journals, articles, and books. Last, but certainly not least, his audio tapes of wolf howling are archived in several international sound archives and credited in several documentaries and films, in Never Cry Wolf, for example. For his excellence in research sustained over 2 decades, and for his commitment to using that research to ensure the legacy of our precious North American wildlife, Dr. Harrington is the recipient of this year's Award for Research Excellence.
The Instructional Leadership Award was established this year to honor faculty who have demonstrated commitment to the improvement of university teaching and learning. The winner of the 2001 Instructional Leadership Award is Dr. Elizabeth Bowering. Since joining the psychology department at the Mount in 1991, Dr. Bowering has tirelessly applied herself to the improvement of the teaching at the Mount and elsewhere. Dr. Bowering's dedication to quality teaching has been underlined by her completion of a bachelor's degree in education in 1999, 7 years after receiving her PhD in psychology. Dr. Bowering has received internal grants to study ways to improve the training of graduate students so that they are better prepared to teach as faculty. This research has allowed her to share her findings at 8 conferences so far. Her dedication to enhancing its instruction at her own and other universities is remarkable. She has been especially influential on the Writing Across the Curriculum Committee, helping to organize workshops and discussions on topics such as learning disabilities in the adult learner, the use of ungraded writing assignments, and journal writing in introductory courses. The multiple choice exam is the most common and possibly the most dreaded evaluation tool for first-year psychology students. One of Dr. Bowering's achievements has been helping students prepare to take multiple choice exams. Developed with a colleague in 1992, her workshop entitled Making the Mark with Multiple Choice has since been formatted into a 50-minute instructional videotape used by student affairs counselors and regularly shown in classes at the Mount and at Dalhousie. In her own writing, Dr. Bowering expresses the belief that educators should show leadership and commitment by connecting with their students, by acknowledging the diverse learning preferences and styles of students in their classrooms, by paying attention to what happens both inside and outside the classroom, and by cooperating with other faculty. She puts these principles into practice on a daily basis and as such is a most deserving recipient of Mount St. Vincent University's first Instructional Leadership Award.
Madam Chancellor, Madam President, honored guests, and everyone who is here today. It's my pleasure and great honor to introduce to you our most recent honorary degree recipient, the Honorable Madam Justice Louise Arbour. Victims are not abstractions, and crimes are not abstractions, even when they are so heinous the mind cannot accept them. So wrote our honored guest. It was with this understanding and empathy that Justice Arbour approached her remarkable legal career, one which placed her front and center on the international stage in 1996, when she was named the Chief Prosecutor of War Crimes before the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and the former Yugoslavia in The Hague. For 3 years, this judge and former law professor doggedly pursued those who had committed war crimes against humanity. It was a deeply personal journey, marked by contrasts and challenges, which she met with dignity, humanity, and true grit. She witnessed the very worst and sometimes the best of humanity. She berated high-ranking officials and consoled bereaved war victims. In spite of personal loneliness, frustration, and even revulsion at what she often saw, she brought respect to her position, herself, and her country. In 1970, Louise Arbour received her law degree with distinction from the Université de Montréal. The following year, she was admitted to the Quebec Bar and hired as Mr. Justice Louis-Philippe Pigeon's law clerk at the Supreme Court of Canada. 28 years later, she would return to the halls of the highest court in the land, a respected jurist, noted for her fine legal mind and elegant legal writing. In the interim, Madame Arbour was called to the Ontario Bar, and in 1977, she joined Osgoode Hall Law School as the second tenured female faculty member. She lectured and published widely on criminal law and charter issues. 10 years later, in 1987, she was appointed to the Supreme Court of Ontario. While sitting on the Ontario Court of Appeal, to which she was elevated in 1995, Justice Arbour headed up a commission that investigated the troubling events at the prison for women in Kingston, Ontario. Subsequently, many of her recommendations were realized. Her reputation as a knowledgeable, articulate, bilingual jurist who placed a high value on the rule of law and human rights gained her international recognition. So it was that Louise Arbour found herself on the way to The Hague in 1996. By her own admission, it was one of the most daunting jobs she has ever undertaken. Back in Canada, Canadians followed her endeavors with pride. Not surprisingly, in the fall of 1999, her appointment to the Supreme Court of Canada was widely commended. She became the fourth female justice to serve her country in this capacity. Over the years, Madame Arbour's contributions to the fields of criminal and human rights law have been recognized by her peers and citizens around the world, as we are here today. Recent awards include the Lord Reading Law Society's Human Rights Award and the Medal of Honor from the International Association of Prosecutors. As stimulating as her work as a jurist has and continues to be, Louise Arbour would assure you that the most challenging and stimulating part of her life has been her role as the mother of 3 children. Une inspiration pour ses enfants et tous les Canadiens, I am pleased to introduce to you Madame la Justice Louise Arbour, mère, professeur, avocat, juge. Une femme qui brille dans la conversation et qui aime la littérature. A woman noted for her wit, collegiality, dignity, inner strength, determination, compassion, and conviction.
Madam Chancellor, Madam President, fellow graduates, family, and friends, I'm sure that you'll agree with me that it would be a sad thing to bring this wonderful afternoon to an end prematurely, so I've decided that I would take the 3 hours allocated to me by the Chancellor to provide you with a condensed history of the Balkans and a summary of the law of war. Should that not serve to captivate your interest, maybe I would focus to the task at hand of addressing the graduates. When I received this honorary degree earlier today, I made very clear that I was accepting it with considerable ambivalence, since I feel that I share the credit for all my accomplishments with people that are too numerous for me to list here. But I also feel that I'm in very good company. Those of you who are graduating today, I'm sure, are also conscious of the debt of gratitude that you have already incurred towards your parents, your friends, your mentors, and all those whose intellectual guidance has already shaped your view of the world. And therefore, today's convocation is not only a celebration of the achievements of the past, represented by the young women and men who are graduating today, but it's also a celebration of the ongoing achievements of Mount St. Vincent student, faculty, alumni, and staff members. We are here to celebrate our hope for the future, a hope founded on the best of our collective accomplishments and on the promise of our work in progress. Now, most of us here today who graduated a long time ago probably don't remember much of the edifying remarks that were made on that occasion by the person who spoke at their convocation. Speaking for myself, I vaguely remember an honorary graduate who seemed to me absolutely ancient and whose professional path I thought had very little to do with my own life. So although this may not seem a great piece of wisdom, what I would like to tell you today is how many of the extraordinary things that are ahead of you, both in your personal and in your professional life, will come in the most unexpected and surprising ways. Amazing things happened to me in April of 1994, things that were going to change my life forever. And yet, I don't remember much about April of 1994. I was then a judge on the Court of Appeal for Ontario. I heard cases, I wrote judgments, I went home, I talked to my children, I walked the dog, and I watched the news. Much of what happened on the news in April of 1994 seemed to have absolutely nothing to do with me. On the 6th of April of that year, President Habyarimana of Rwanda was killed. The plane in which he was traveling with the president of Burundi was shot down over the airport in Kigali. By early morning, roadblocks were erected throughout Rwanda. This was the onset of the genocide. In the next 100 days to the middle of July, nearly 1 million people would be killed in this minuscule country in the Great Lakes region of Central Africa. On April the 22nd, 1994, in the evening, a brief but violent physical confrontation took place between 6 inmates at the prison for women in Kingston and a number of correctional officers. The inmates were placed in the segregation unit, and 2 days later, an institution emergency response team from Kingston Penitentiary performed what is called a cell extraction and a strip search. That procedure was videotaped. When that videotape was eventually obtained and shown by the CBC months later, it shocked the Canadian public. A year later, I was appointed to conduct an inquiry into the events at the prison for women. By April of 1996, I had submitted my report, and I was in the process of packing my bags to move to The Hague to oversee investigations and prosecutions for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide perpetrated in the former Yugoslavia and in Rwanda. Now, the events at the prison for women in Kingston and the massacres in Rwanda appear on the surface to have very little in common, and yet they speak, each in a different way, about the consequences of the rule of force overriding the rule of law. And I should add that if I needed any reminder of this phenomenon, I had the pleasure earlier today of meeting a couple who emigrated from Kosovo to Canada in 1999 as refugees. And in speaking to them and to the people who sponsored their settlement here in Halifax, I was reminded not only of the necessity to maintain the rule of law over the rule of force, but I was reminded in a very moving way about the amazing vitality of the human spirit. Now, there are events unfolding in the world today, some close and some very far away, which will touch you in a profoundly personal way and will change the course of your life. Events will affect you, and you can choose to affect them. I hope that you don't underestimate the extent to which you can and you should make a contribution. You are, in effect, the beneficiaries of a rich and yet ambivalent inheritance. As Canadians, we have been spared more than others the catastrophic social and political fallout of the two great wars which have left a profound mark on the last century. We are, I believe, in many ways, democracy's nouveau riche. We are able to collect the prized dividend of community life, physical safety, freedom of thought, and freedom of the opportunity to think, respect for dissidents, management of pluralism, abundance of comfort and leisure, good health, and life expectancy. So with such political, intellectual, and material well-being, we may be tempted to conclude that we deserve all that we enjoy, counting ourselves amongst the world's intellectual aristocracy. And it is therefore difficult for us, who we live in a country where our lives and our sense of security is so rarely threatened. It's difficult to understand truly the profound vulnerability of those who struggle to survive in war-torn areas of the world, who live precariously in fear of death, torture, rape, persecution, and deportation. In fact, we often feel overwhelmed by their loud and insistent demand for help, and we find ourselves lacking the means and sometimes lacking the patience to respond. As Canadians, we have had the privilege of being nurtured in an environment that is respectful of intellectual pursuits, that deals with ideas on their merits, and that accepts contradictory debate as a gift of democracy. I am reminded on a daily basis that humanity has not lost its appetite for justice. Thankfully, an increasing number of actors are emerging from all sectors of civil society to insist on being more than impotent witnesses to history. Activists understand that nothing happens without people. However, nothing lasts without institutions, and nothing lives without people reinventing institutions. In the last few years, we have brought to the development of our national and international institutions a willing, creative spirit which has forged imaginative responses to the most pressing crises. Now, some of you here today may still be perplexed or confused about your career choices. As you are about to enter the labor market, where it was remarked by one of you earlier today that there is an unavoidable tendency to measure your performance by the income that you can generate, I urge you to pause occasionally to take the only meaningful account of your professional life. I urge you to measure whether there is a trade surplus or a trade deficit between what you really want to accomplish and the concessions that you will have to make to get there. Together with your families, your friends, and your mentors, I look forward to your many accomplishments in the years to come, and on your behalf, I thank them for being here at your side today. Madam Chancellor, thank you so much for welcoming me into the Mount St. Vincent community.
Thank you, Madam Justice. Wow, what a day. Today is a day for thinking of many things for all of us graduates, for thinking about our past, the summation of all the experiences that have brought us here, for thinking about this day that, at least for me, has gone by so quickly I won't remember any of it, and for thinking about the future and as the Madam Justice said, all of the amazing wonders that we will see. We also turn our thoughts to Dr. Beverly Mascoll, who was not able to be with us today. Although she could not be here, she was represented well by her colleague, Dr. Justice, Honorable Madam Dr. Justice. That's a very long title she has. Despite the absence, we heard a great deal of good things from Madam Justice Arbour. Most important to me were, first of all, what she said about the exciting things that will come in our future that we won't be expecting. It's true enough, people always say that the good things happen to you when you're not expecting it. Of course, that always makes them even better, doesn't it? I'm hoping that the experiences that do come out of the blue in our lives will be nearly as satisfying as they have been for the Madam Justice. I hope that we are able to make a contribution to our world by making the changes when given the opportunity, as she was. Second, I want to mention, as she said, we should never stop taking advantage of the life that we're given here in Canada. As we've just heard, we are blessed living in this country. We should never stop taking advantage of the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to help other people who aren't given the opportunities that we are. And finally, I was most interested in her acceptance with ambivalence, when she said that there are too many people to name who have helped her get where she is right now. And over my years at the Mount, that has been my one conclusion, that friends and family is what this community is all about. A small school where everyone's your friend. And so on behalf of the Mount St. Vincent University graduating class of 2001, I wish to extend our deepest appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Mascoll, Madam Justice Arbour, the Mount community, and all of our friends and family. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Madam Justice Arbour, on your many achievements, and you've done the Mount a great honor by accepting to receive the honorary degree today. So we wish you the best in all your continuing endeavors. Congratulations, too, to all those who have received diplomas, certificates, and degrees today. We share your joy, your sense of achievement, and we wish you well on your continuing life journey. Thank you to all those family members and friends who have been here with us today to share in these convocation celebrations. If there are family members or friends who are not able to be present, these convocation ceremonies are videotaped, and they will be shown on Channel 10 within 3 or 4 weeks' time, in case you want to catch any of the memorable moments. So I'd like to let you know that graduates and their families and guests are invited to a reception in the dining hall in Rosaria Center as soon as the convocation ceremonies are concluded. And now it is my duty as Chancellor to declare these convocation ceremonies closed.